Alright, let's paint some plastics. So the first thing to think about is when you want to paint something like plastic is how old is it and how hard is it to take off. Now, surprisingly, a switch like this should be pretty easy, but this truck is 2002, you know, it's damn near getting to be a classic at some point in its life. And this switch here, or I'm sorry, this plug, has probably never been removed. And it may not seem like it, but I've been working on this for about a good 20 minutes on both sides. So that's your first hurdle. Obviously the next issue too is removing any electronics that are attached to it. And when you have a truck, aka 19 years old, as mine, that can be a little tricky because you don't want to break any of the stuff. So, you know, it's just one of those things that you have to consider before you even start a little project like this. So one of the first things you want to do once you get all your plastics disassembled and all that good stuff is you want to make sure you clean it. Wax and grease remover. You can buy any brand, they all do the same shit. Or if you're really hurt, you can use Dawn dish soap. Clean it with gloves. Not even gloves, just make sure you clean all your plastics off. The reason for that is because you ever put Armor All on your plastics? Well, that's essentially silicone, and let me tell you, silicone does not do good for painting plastics. It ruins the whole process. You might be able to paint it, but in the future it's just going to flake right off because technically it didn't stick to anything. And you don't want to sand it first either because you're still just kind of rubbing the silicone into the plastic. So step one is always clean your plastics. And even if you don't put any type of Armor All or any of that type of stuff on there, your hands have plenty of grease on them. I mean, hell, my hands are dirty just from messing with these plastics. So I'm sure you ate a cheeseburger the last couple of days. There's grease on that, so there you go. So yeah, clean plastics is step one. Cleaned up pretty good actually. See, there's always a little bit of dirt on this stuff, even though if you can't see it. So especially, like I said, I'll say it again, on plastics, clean them. Always clean them. That's like one of the most important things. I can't stress it enough. Anyways, so at this point, I'll get you a close up here. Most automotive plastics, especially on the interior, have texture. Now, if you're okay with this texture and you don't give two damns, you just want to change the color, then buy yourself this. Spray it on, let it dry, snap it back in, go home, whatever, who cares. But if you want to make it nice and smooth and glossy, it's a little different story, okay? So first things first here is what we got to do is we're going to go ahead and sand these pieces with 80 grit. Now you can use an orbital sander if you have one, you can use palm sander, whatever you have you can use. If you don't have anything, just use your hand and some sandpaper. I like Harbor Freight sandpaper personally, just my personal preference. You can buy this stuff anywhere, they sell it just about anywhere. And the plan is we want to get rid of all this texture. Okay, here's a side-by-side comparison. This is 80 grit, just rough sanded. This is the non-sanded part. Now as you see, there is a little bit of texture there that you just can't get rid of simply because plastic is uneven, you know? It just is. The thing is, you got the majority of it, and that's what matters. So, after you sand it with 80, believe it or not, you want to hit it with the degreaser again because yes, grease soaks into plastic. So to clean this up, after you did all that, this is kind of what you're looking at here. Just like a nice, almost matte, zero appeal plastic. See? So now we're going to repeat the same steps here, but we're actually going to sand it next with 180 just to get all the rough scratches out and just go ahead and touch everything up. We're basically repeating our steps. We're going to sand it and clean it with the degreaser. Alright, so now at this point, it's time to choose your adhesion, your primer essentially. Now some people like to use something called like a bulldog adhesion. You can find that O'Reilly's and some other parts that sell paint. Honestly, if you use any type of primer that's, you know, has a pretty good name behind it, Krylon's not a bad primer. This is a 2-in-1, so it's kind of like almost like an epoxy primer and a filler primer in one. So this kind of saves some money if you want to try to get something like this. And essentially, if you can't figure it out from the name, filler primer, it's a thicker primer designed to fill in imperfections, kind of like what we have down here. Okay, and that's the plan is. So we're going to put about a good 3 solid coats of this, nice and heavy. The first one's actually going to be light to make sure we don't have any type of reaction with any existing chemicals or oils or any type of stuff on the plastic itself. But after that, we'll do 2 good heavy coats. So here we are, it's been roughly 30 minutes since the last coat, and this thing has now had time to flash. Hard to tell up close, but you can see there's still some texture visible. Looks fine. So now we move on to the part of sanding the filler primer down. So we want to use 600 grit. Now most people like to dry sand. I personally believe in wet sanding just because I feel like it, you know, your sandpaper goes much longer, and just you can really see the difference when you're colors or wet sanding. Okay. So now we wet sand it with 600 grit, and you can see how the filler primer almost changed colors a little bit. The lighter stuff is like stuff that has not technically been sanded, and you know, white and the darker stuff is the stuff that got sanded. So you can kind of see the sanding marks and such. You can kind of tell where it needs a little bit more filler primer. That's a good example right there. Yep. Alright, just finished spraying the 3rd coat of primer on here. Just so you can give you an idea of what we're looking at. You can already start to see the smoothness in this. Now I have my flash on, so it looks a little spotty. That's just because it's just hasn't flashed yet. But you can kind of see what we're going with here. Got a little speck there. You see the little dot? There you go. I'm just gonna leave that there. Just that defect in the plastic, but I don't really care about it that much, you know? But if you're OCD, then fix it. But me, I don't care. So here we are. So probably gonna put an extra coat on it. Now when I say the 3rd coat, I mean like I primered it, wet sanded, primered it, wet sanded it. Now this is the 3rd primer. I'm probably gonna put a couple more coats on it just to build it up, in case I have a few little stragglers here and there, and we'll throw paint next. So we're gonna start with this black Krylon paint. Once again, we went with flat black just because in my experience, it's better to paint with basic colors with spray paint and then clear over it with the same type of brand usually, other than doing like a gloss color, because sometimes the clear, in my experience, reacts weird. So, I'm not gonna lie. I saw how nice the black looked on that trim. When it came time to put these switches back on, I just did not like the way it looked. So, we're gonna paint these switches too. So I couldn't get this plug off. I didn't want to do it. I mean, the other ones were kind of obvious. I'm not really sure how this comes off, so we're just gonna leave this one on here and just tape it up. These though, however, were pretty obvious. They're kind of like the rod type, you know what I mean? I'll show you. These little guys right here. So it snaps in, fits into it. Now this uses like some, I'm assuming we'll call this acrylic or some type of PVC, and what it does is like it's kind of like fogged a little bit just so the light travels through it. The light bulbs are down here. I'm not even gonna lie, don't even know if these light bulbs work anymore, but I like the idea of having them there. Obviously if I ever wanted to, I could just pull this out of the door panel and replace the bulbs, which I might end up doing if they don't work. But we'll figure that out another time. Anyways, we're actually gonna do this a little bit differently since we're not really trying to get rid of any texture. We're just gonna roughen up the pieces with 600 grit and then just paint them red, actually, of all colors. I know it sounds kind of strange, but you know, I can pick these up at the junkyard if I end up painting it, so. Time lapse. So we got everything sanded, just rough sanded. We're gonna clean them up one more time before we paint with the Scotch-Brite pad, I think. But I do want to keep these, I guess call it translucent plastic pieces in play. You can see that's how it looks like in the back. So I'm gonna tape over it, and to help me out with that, I'm essentially just gonna use my phone and light up the plastic like that. See? That way, you can see where my tape needs to be. Case in point, I'll show you real quick. So what I'll do is I guess I'll save some time. I'll try to pick a line with tape. So something like that. See, now that the tape's on it, I can figure out where I need to trim with my razor blade. Okay. The other thing about this though is that, for example, these, they have the little lock deal. You know, I guess where it tells you your truck, how to lock your truck, which direction. Not really sure what I'm gonna do about that just yet. Obviously, it's weird because it has the window shape, you know, as the other ones, like you would for to roll down your window, right? But they're in different configurations, but I don't know if I'm just gonna paint over this right now. I do not have the hand or the detail to do something like this, so I might just say fuck it, paint over it. Maybe I've changed this into a little lock or something, a key. I don't know, I'll figure it out. For now, I'm just gonna leave it like it is and see what I can figure out. Well, I don't wanna bore you with a bunch of taping, so you know, same thing as always. All right, everything's been prepared. So first, before I sanded it, I didn't show it on camera. I cleaned it with the wax and grease remover. Then I sanded it with 600 grit. Then I cleaned it with thinner. And obviously I got my tape all on it. And I was able to pull this one off. It just pops right off. And I got this one sitting in the can since it has that little, you know, the thing. So we're just gonna slap some regular red paint on it. And yeah, we'll have some custom match switches. We're doing mist coat, obviously, as always. Let that flash. Go ahead and do our second coat. Keep moving it around. You get the idea. Had to change your heart, changing it up, going with apple red. You can see it's a little brighter than the normal red I already used. And it makes a world of a difference. Alright, I think that looks way better. Here's the finished product, painted. Got a lot of orange peel on this one, but I don't really care. Put it together. Something hilarious. I didn't paint this one. We'll be back. Alright, boys. Here it is, the final outcome. I'm actually kind of happy with it. Didn't know how the red would look, to be honest with you. But this is it. This is how they sit in the truck. Driver's side, passenger side, in case anyone's wondering. Everything was pretty straightforward. The only switch that gave me problems was this one. I would just say if you end up doing this particular mod, when you pull this one off, like I said, it just pops straight out, but when you put it back in, it has to go in a certain way, just to line your tabs on the inside. It's got these little buttons in there, and it's got like a little notch on one corner, so just make sure that lines up. This is that time to dry, although I was messing with it and I did end up scratching it here already. But that's spray paint. That's a downside about spray paint. When you paint it, it takes a while for it to dry, even though if you do it right. And yeah, I mean, they look pretty damn neat. So we're gonna go ahead and slap them in the truck. Go ahead and apologize for the wind, folks. But here we are. Looks pretty damn good if you ask me. Both sides are installed. And yeah, pretty good. Probably gonna end up redoing this. Like I said, for anyone who don't know who's watching this, I did this door panel I don't know, 8-9 years ago. It's a long time ago. So this piece here, as we can tell, has bubbled for some reason, and now I hit it actually the other day and it started to flake. So I guess this is what happens when like Armor All type material is on there, that you don't clean it good enough. So possibly that could be the moisture. I have no idea. Honestly, the last thing that left to do on this door panel is to paint the handle. I guess I'll have to paint this now. I guess I can't paint it red because I got a little red spot down there to show me that it's unlocked. Or maybe I can put that as green. I don't know. You guys tell me what you want to see. I'll paint these two next. And I'll have to redo this because this was my first attempt, in case anyone's wondering. I'll probably go back with stock and just have someone do me a nice leather one with black stitching to match the seats. But yeah, you can see where we're at now, fellas. I think it looks pretty damn cool. Let me know what y'all think. Peace.